cycle that started in 2017. Can I first ask for any members who are absent to be declared, please?
Apologies from Councillors Dylan Rees and Gwilym Jones.
Thank you. We move on to the declarations of interest. If people could be letting me know now if they have interest in any of the items that are due to appear on the agenda, and I will initially declare myself as someone who is mentioned in agenda item 2, the appointment of lay members to the Governance and Audit Committee. I understand I'll be slotted into the waiting room for that item. So I'll have to ask that I now be absented, or if people would prefer, we could defer the item until later on in the agenda. Would that be acceptable?
Yes, I propose that, Chairman. We leave it till the end of the session.
All right. Thank you very much. We have the minutes of the previous meeting, which was held on the 8th of February. If people could please let me know, first of all, if there are any matters of accuracy that they're not, they'd like to highlight. And if not, we'll just go through page by page, starting with page 3. Please mention anything that you wish to bring up. Page 4, Treasury Management. Page 5. Page 6, External Audit Commissioning of Older People's Care Home Placements. Page 7. Page 8. Page 9. External audit letter in relation to counter fraud arrangements. Page 10. External audit regenerating town centres in Wales report. Page 11. Page 12. Page 13. 3 items here. External audit, the summary for 2021, external audit Wales programme and timetable update, annual insurance report, page 14, internal audit update, page 15, 16, forward work programme, risk management update, and page 17, cyber security annual report. Are all content? Can I ask for your agreement, please? And we normally go through this member by member. I'll start with John Griffith. Dylan Rees is absent. Alan Roberts.
Accept.
Margaret.
Derbyn, accept.
Gwilym.
He sent his apologies.
Oh, sorry. Richard Griffiths.
He's absent.
Jeff Evans.
He's absent also.
And of course, Peter Rogers, who is about to join us. So, and I add my approval. Thank you very much indeed. We move on now to the Governance and Audit Committee self-assessment of good practice. This is a report which is going back to an event that took place over 2 years ago. Marion, I think, is going to update us, please.
Thank you, Chair. This is a self-assessment checklist that is suggested by SIPFA as good practice. The week before lockdown, a panel consisting of the chair and vice chair at the time and lay member, myself and the principal auditor sat down to go through the checklist and evaluated the audit committee's structure and framework against the checklist. Due to the strategy for meetings over the last 2 years with lockdown, it wasn't considered a priority. So it was put on a shelf, but I have since refreshed it. I've gone through it again to make sure that it's up to date and it's still relevant. And this is your report. I won't go through it in any detail, but what I will do is I'll draw your attention to the improvement areas that we felt would be of benefit to the committee. And the first one is a qualitative self-assessment. So what I'll be doing during 22-23 is I'll be sending out a survey to members of the audit committee, plus other members and senior management and those that the committee interact with, to get their views on whether they believe that the audit committee is performing in the way it should and it's discharging its responsibilities. Similarly, in link to this, I'll also be sending out a qualitative self-assessment to members of the audit committee when it is formed, the new governance and audit committee, to identify whether members feel that they need any training, how they feel they're performing in terms of the skill set required to be an effective member of an audit committee. And then the third area that was highlighted when we did the self-assessment checklist was that the Governance and Audit Committee, which is different from the scrutiny committees, doesn't have in itself a dedicated democratic services officer to serve it. So that was something we'll explore with the head of democratic services when they are appointed. So I'm happy to answer any questions, Chair, on the self-assessment.
Yes. Do members have any questions for Marion? Can I ask Marion, on improvement area 3, where we're talking about a dedicated democratic services office, how does that work?
So the scrutiny officers have a dedicated scrutiny officer serving it, so they'll deal with all the administration arrangements. At the moment, that all falls to me. And it's as I report to the committee, I shouldn't really be in charge of the arrangements of the committee and reporting to it. So nobody's holding me to account for the arrangements for the committee. So things like this self-assessment would be done by an independent partial person rather than me doing it. So it is, I think, definitely a weakness of the committee at the moment that it doesn't have that impartial element to it.
Is this mentioned at all in SIPFA regulations or rules, guidance?
So this is this is the checklist that SIPFA have as part of its guidance and position statement from 2018. So I can't remember the actual paragraph says, but it's about it, whether it's supported appropriately, whether the committee is supported appropriately by officers. Right.
And do you know the practice in the rest of the Welsh local government councils?
Yep.
Do they have?
Yeah. Yes.
For the audit committee?
Yes.
Okay. So how will this be enacted? Are we going to wait?
Well, at the moment, the head of democratic services position is vacant, and the council is trying to recruit. So we're just waiting for that person to be recruited, and then a conversation will be had with that person when they're appointed.
Thank you very much. Are there any further questions? I see the hand up from Rhys Howard Hughes.
Hi, yes, thank you, Chair. Good afternoon. Just to inform members that I've got the interim responsibility for the head of democratic services. So I'll have a discussion with Marion to see how we can move this forward.
All right, thank you. And Alan?
Yes, I was just wondering, because of the workload that the present scrutiny officers have, would this entail a new post, or would it just simply mean that they take on more responsibility? I know we're at the early stages of the discussion at the moment, and it's obviously not so easy without the head of democratic services being appointed, but how do we see it panning out?
Marion?
I
think Rhys has got his hand up to answer that question.
Oh, Rhys, sorry.
No problem. Thanks, Marion. I can't answer that question at the moment. I'll have to review the current position, see the capacity, and make a decision together with the team after doing that.
All right. Thank you very much. All happy? Okay, thank you very much indeed, Marion, and the other contributors. We move to the next agenda item, which is Governance and Audit Committee's draft terms of reference. Marion, are you going to introduce this?
Yes, this is me again, Chair. So the Local Government Elections Wales Act 2021 has introduced some new responsibilities for the Governance and Audit Committee. And at 1.3 there on page 29, you can see those 4 bullet points, and they summarise the new responsibilities that they have. So obviously you'll be aware of the composition and arrangements, where there are 4 new lay members required. There's also a review of an annual self-assessment report that needs to come to the Governance and Audit Committee. A performance panel assessment will also need to come to the Governance and Audit Committee once in its 5-year cycle. And then there's also provision for the Auditor General to do some special inspection work should he deem it appropriate. So the terms of reference for the Audit Committee fit within the Constitution. So it's the exec who will recommend it to the full council. But if you do, as a committee, have any comments on these changes that have been highlighted there, then we can put them forward when it goes to the exec and then to full council on the 25th of April.
Right, thank you very much. Do members have comments or questions? John?
It's on mute.
At last. Yeah, can I refer to 3.4.8 and then 2.4 following that?
Yep.
Having to attend meetings of the committee. It says there that they have to answer any questions asked to them, in exception of those that they can refuse to answer if they were in court. I feel that it's a bit weak there, and a little bit vague, really. Is there better wording to explain what you're trying to convey there?
Ymddiheuriad yma, mae'r
Apologies.
3.4.8.2.4
3.4.8.2.4.
Roedd y paragraff yna.
That paragraph was there already before the changes were made. The changes are only those that are in blue. Oh, I'd taken that it was totally new. Apologies for that. No, that's been amended and agreed by the full council. It's only those in blue that have been changed. The track changes in blue and the new wording is in blue. I can't see it, but maybe next time, maybe it could be, next time you can review it, maybe you could consider that. Because a better explanation is needed of exactly what you mean there, in my opinion. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. While we're on that sort of area, can I just ask Marion what panel performance assessment means?
So a panel performance assessment is where they have so this is Gethin Morgan's area of the terms of reference, but I'm led to believe it's a performance assessment by a panel of citizens that's brought together, and I think they are appointed by the Welsh Government on our behalf. I think I'm not too clear on the actual arrangements for the panel performance assessment, but it's something that has to be done, I know, with once in a 5-year cycle of the council.
And is it just the Audit and Governance Committee that has a panel performance review?
No, so it's for the council, and what happens is the draft report comes to the Governance and Audit Committee first. The Governance and Audit Committee will review it, and if it doesn't feel that it reflects the council and its assessment, it can make recommendations for changes to that panel performance assessment. So the council, as it says in 34816 there, that draft, so the council must publish the panel performance assessment, and then that panel performance assessment must come, but beforehand it must come to the Governance and Audit Committee, who can review it and then make comments to the council, and then they must consider those comments before it's published. I think it needs to come to them 6 months before, and then if it doesn't make the changes recommended by the Governance and Audit Committee, then it must say why it hasn't made those changes. And
this is a requirement of Welsh Government through the.
So these are all these are all requirements of the Local Government and Elections Wales Act 2021. So these have all been put in accordance with the Act.
Right. And may I also ask Marion why Appendix A right at the end has been deleted?
They were just publications. We don't know actually why. Don't know why they were there in the first place, because the publications do change quite often. You know, it refers to the Internal Audit Charter. Well, that changes on an annual basis, and so it's not really appropriate for it to be in the Constitution, because the Constitution would need to be changed every time.
Right.
So they're not necessary there.
Okay. The other thing I wanted to check is whether it's worth benchmarking our terms of reference as they're proposed with those of other councils.
Other councils should be benchmarking their performance against the Audit Committee, the SIPFA Audit Committee guidance, the 2018 position statement, and so that's what we benchmark ourselves against. To be honest, I wouldn't see the point of benchmarking against other councils if they didn't perform well against that guidance framework and position statement. For example, I know in a council not too far from here has 18 members of its Governance and Audit Committee, and I wouldn't like to benchmark us against that, because I know that size is unwieldy and that the SIPFA position statement says so. So I'd rather benchmark against the standard rather than another council.
Okay.
Which is what we do in our, that's what the self-assessment did. It benchmarked ourselves against that guidance, and it also, in the chair's report, which is the Governance and Audit Committee's report, it benchmarks itself against our terms of reference.
No, my main concern was whether the interpretation of the requirements of the 2021 Act have been taken into account. I'm not so concerned about the SIPFA ones. They're pretty well known. It's just there's a new Act which is having implications on the terms of reference of this committee. And have we covered everything? I think that's the point I'm making.
Yeah, we've been working with a solicitor to go through these, the Act, the new Act. A solicitor has been commissioned specifically for this purpose to go through the changes to this Act. The SIPFA have been approached because obviously it means that the Act now takes us slightly away from the 2018 statement. So as a matter of urgency, we've asked SIPFA to issue new guidance specifically for Welsh councils.
Right.
The last I heard, they were hoping to do something in May.
Okay. Is it worth waiting for that before this is approved?
No, we have to have these in place by the beginning of May for the new council.
Okay. So, thank you very much. Do other members have questions? I can't see all of you, obviously, but any hands up, please shout. If not, I'll turn now to the beginning of the agenda item, and there's a recommendation here that the committee reviews and comments on the amendments to its terms of reference before they are submitted to the executive and full council for approval. Are members content that that should be the recommendation? Again, I think probably for clarity, I'll go through. John Griffiths.
Derbyn, accept.
Accept.
Alan.
Derbyn, accept.
Margaret.
Derbyn, accept.
Willem. Oh, he's absent. Jeff. Peter is still absent, and myself. All right. Thank you very much indeed. The next item is the internal audit update, item 6, starting on page 41. And again, your turn, Marion.
Yeah. So this report gives members an update on the 8 weeks or so since we did our last report. We've finalised 3 audit pieces of work since that date. And you'll see there on page 44, the first is 2 pieces of work that we did at the same time. I've explained in detail there why we did it at the same time, so I won't go into any detail on that. Members have also received a separate report and action plan of where we're up to with this work. So 13 issues, risks were raised when we originally did the work, 3 of which have been resolved, leaving 10 still outstanding. Some work has been done on the outstanding ones, but we haven't, not enough work has been done for us to move the assurance from the limited assurance rating. We've met with the team since to discuss how we're going to move this forward. And we are working with the team to help them to address these issues, these ongoing issues. I'm happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any questions, please? Marion, can I ask one? I suppose the primary concern is that it is taking us a long time to get through all this. And I realise that it's probably a manning problem, lack of ability to tackle the issues purely because of not enough people to get on with the job. I was wondering, Mark, have you got anything to add, please?
Yeah, the difficulty we have, we accept what the report says and we've agreed on the action plan. It's actually implementing it. The payroll and payments team is a small team to begin with, and they have an overriding deadline, which is to make sure that everybody's paid on the 25th of each month. They have no option of that. Moving that deadline is not an option. So their priority always is to make sure that we pay all our staff on time on the 25th, and then to try and make sure that we pay our suppliers as promptly as we can. The difficulty we had was, one was number of bodies in the team. We had a restructure. It took us a little bit longer than it should have done. We've now finally sorted out who's in which post. We have, I think it's one vacant post that we've tried to fill, and we've gone out a second time to fill that post. We also, in the team, had an officer that was responsible for the system, the payroll system, and to do some work on the creditor system. We also have a team that's responsible for the main financial system, but they're very much involved in other things, and creditors is only one part of that system. Unfortunately, the post holder we had left last summer, and although we tried to recruit a couple of times, we failed. So we've had a rethink, and we've decided to try and appoint a trainee. So the council is going out with a number of trainee posts at the moment, and there's one for payroll and payments included in that. So that will bring us an additional resource as well. Also, as part of the 22-23 budget, I put forward a proposal that the service in its entirety appoints a business manager, and one of the responsibilities of the business manager will be, well, one, to ensure that audit recommendations are implemented, and two, to review and develop our business processes. Not just, there aren't just issues with creditor payments. We have issues in other areas as well, income collection, sundry debtors, and we need that additional resource to be, and to have somebody to have the time to sit back and see, why do we do things the way we do them? I believe that some of the difficulties that have been identified in the audit is that our system is overcomplicated, and it makes it difficult for the services to comply with it, which then has a knock-on effect of creating duplicates and everything else. And I think we need to just sit back and look at our system, how it works, why do we do what the things we do, and can we simplify it to make sure that if it's simplified, it becomes easier for the services to comply with it. Still have to maintain the internal controls, still have to make sure that the thing does what it's supposed to. But if we can get it a little bit more streamlined, hopefully the services will be able to comply better with it as well, which will then reduce the number of things that the creditors team have to do with invoices. They should, if things work properly, should go through the system quite simply. If an order has been raised and the invoice matches the order, it should be that the invoice is scanned, it matches the order, and just goes through the system without very much manual intervention. But that process is failing at the moment, and there's too much manual intervention, which is bogging the team down, which is creating the issues which have been identified in the audit. So we are working on it. I accept that it hasn't moved as fast as it should have done, but some of it is down to not having enough bodies here to do the review and the implementation of the changes. So hopefully when we get more people in the vacant posts that we have, the one in payments, the trainee and the business manager, that will give us a little bit more resource to be able to work on this and move it forward.
So is the issue in priority to get the software correct, or to tackle individual specified items, the two major and 8 moderate?
I think the software is there, but I think we need to look at how we use it as one step, and whether we need to take some of the checks that are in it out, if we can. What can we do with the system to try and simplify it? And then it's a matter of working with services. Then I raised this at the heads of service meeting, and each service has come back with a nominated person. So the majority of the services now will have a business manager. Some have them already. Like I say, in the budget round, there was 3 additional ones built into the budget. So those people will probably become the primary contact for any issues relating to credit payments. And the hope is that if we can train them, they then train their staff.
Right.
The problem is when software was put in, we did a lot of training, and 2 things have happened. One, there's been a lot of changes of staff, which we may or may not be aware of, and 2, people don't use it every day. People that raise orders and process invoices, some of them don't use it every day, and they tend to forget how to use the system. So if we have sort of the trainer sort of idea, so we do the training with the business managers, and then they'll know when their staff are changing and who needs. They'll have somebody in the service will be there to help the members of staff in the service when they need it, then, rather than all having to come back to the centre. So hopefully, with what we can do with the services, what we can do ourselves, what we can do with the system, we can streamline the process, improve what the services do, make sure that people understand what they're supposed to do and why they're supposed to do it, and that we have this contact in each service. So if we're having issues with individual services, we can go to that contact and say, these are the problems, we need to sort them out. We don't have that contact at the moment, or not in a formal way that we can use properly.
Were some of these issues raised by the external auditors during their most recent audit?
Not that I'm aware of. They would have taken into account the internal audit work done on the system and taken assurance from that. You have to remember that the creditor system, we pay around 125, 130 million through it every year. So yes, there's a level of duplicate payments that have been identified. But as a percentage of what we actually pay, it's less than 1% of the payments that we make. So from their perspective, they may not have considered it to be a material problem that has a material impact on the accounts.
Right. Finally, can I also ask, the completion dates for all items, the 2 and the 8, have been put now to November 22. Is there any benefit to be gained by getting completion dates of the 2 major ones a bit before that?
If we can do them before November, we will try, but it is dependent on us getting people into these jobs as well. You know, this business manager one is key, because that will be the person that will be responsible for delivering the implementation of all the recommendations. And I would hope that they would concentrate on the 2 major ones first and try and get those sorted.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Marion, do you want to press on, please, with your report.
So the third piece of work we did was the progress update that the committee asked us to report back at this meeting. And that's on the recovery in council sundry debts and the impact of COVID-19. And I won't go into any detail. You'll have read there that what's been done so far. So we're quite happy with progress. The consultants have been commissioned to help with addressing the risks that we raised. So we'll look at it again in October 2022 and give you a report back then.
Okay. Then work in progress.
So you'll see there on page 47, they're all the pieces of work that we are currently working on. You'll see that 3 are highlighted in the strategic risk register as a red residual risk. So they are having our priority focus at the moment. There's also a couple of other pieces of work that one, the teacher's pension that the director of function asked us to look at, and managing the risk of fraud and corruption, although it used to be on the corporate risk register as an amber risk. Since we started the piece of work, it's now down to a yellow risk. And the climate change and sustainability and the provision of suitable local housing are both amber on the strategic risk register. So we're all looking at those, and hopefully we'll be in a position to report back in June at the first meeting of the Governance and Audit Committee. The outstanding actions, there are 3 overdue actions, all moderate, so a yellow colour, and they're all related to one audit, which is the leavers process, which we are working with the service to help them to address at the moment. I don't know if Mark wants to give you any update on that.
Yeah, this again was part of the restructure. We identified the need for one person to be responsible for accounting for payroll transactions, reconciling overpayments, the recovery of overpayments, and that sort of thing. We did the restructure, and the member of staff that was appointed went on long-term sick. That person has subsequently left, and we've reappointed a new member of staff to that post. So that member of staff now is taking over that responsibility for reconciling things relating to overpayments, when people leave and that sort of thing. And again, we'll look at the process once we get the business manager and the trainee in place, whether we can improve the leavers process to avoid the things that have happened that have caused overpayments, where people have left and we don't know about it because the service hasn't told us. We do have a process in place. We created an electronic process that should have picked up everybody, but sometimes they don't work properly because the services don't follow the process. So again, it's a matter of training, reminding services how the system operates, the implications of what happens when they don't follow the system properly. So those 2 things should cover the outstanding actions once we get this additional post in place. Like I say, the accounting officer has only recently been appointed, so she has a lot of things to try and sort out, including pensions. So she's concentrating on pensions at the moment, but the other things will follow once we get everybody settled.
Thank you very much. So a lot depends on speed with which you can fill vacancies.
Yeah, it's an issue generally, I think, across the council, filling vacancies at the moment. We're having difficulties in some areas, finance being one of them, and hopefully that we'll overcome that, and once we get the right people in, things will improve.
Thank you. Marion, priorities?
So, that leads me on to the priorities for 2022 and 2023. As you'll be aware, the Council has recently revised its risk management framework, and now we have a strategic risk register, which has significantly cut the number of risks down to strategic risk. But we're still there are still a few there that we haven't reviewed in the last 2 years, so that's going to be our focus, as you saw in the fieldwork that's currently underway. We're also working on developing our strategy for 22-23, and I'm currently meeting heads of service and other members of the senior team to discuss their risks with them and if there's anything that they would like us to cover. And we'll also be having some input to the induction programme for the new elected members following the council elections in May. Our long-term priorities are still fairly long-term, so it's delivering the counter-fraud, bribery and corruption strategy, working with colleagues in the performance team to improve assurance mapping, and we have our external quality assessment due in June that we'll have to start preparing for shortly, so that's our work. Happy to answer any questions, Chair, on that going forward.
Marion, who carries out the external quality assessment? Is it another?
It's a peer review. Yeah, so we do a self-assessment, which is then peer reviewed by another local authority. This year, it will be Flintshire County Council. Last time it was Denbighshire County Council that did it for us, but this time it will be Flintshire. And I'm currently doing Ceredigion at the moment.
Right, thank you. Do members have any comments? No hands up? Don't see any. I think that completes the report.
It does, Chair.
Okay.
I'll hand over to Nanette now. You'll have a break from my voice and hand over to Nanette. She'll do the next report for you.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Marion. So the committee notes the internal audit's assurance provision and priorities going forward. Thank you very much. So Nanette is going to take the item on outstanding issues and risks. Please.
Oh, you're on mute. That's it. Yep.
Yeah, you can hear me now. Yeah, apologies. Thank you. So this is the twice yearly report that comes to the committee outlining the council's performance in addressing issues and risks and subsequent actions that are raised as part of our audit work. We use the 4Action software tracking system to help us monitor and track actions as they come due. And the committee is aware that we have a dashboard which displays a real-time sort of snapshot of current performance, and it enables us to effectively track and report this information. If I could just move down to page 2 of the report, it's 55 in the pack of current performance. So there are 5 graphs which show the outstanding actions across the council as at the 31st of March. And you'll see there in graph 1 that currently there are 62 outstanding actions that are being tracked within 4Action. 17 of these are major rated in risk priority and 45 are moderate in their risk priority. In graph 2 there, you'll see that we've got 3 overdue actions, and these relate to the levers process actions that have already been discussed in the previous item. Just moving down to 3 and 4 on page 3, these show the status of actions within the system. So this is whether or not where within the progress with actually addressing that particular issue or risk. So whether they're not started, in progress, closed, or if they've been verified by ourselves in internal audit. The one I'd like to sort of draw the committee's attention to there is graph 4, because this shows the status of actions where they've become due, so where they've actually reached the target dates that management agreed to address the issue risk by. And you can see there that where actions have become due, 96% have been addressed, and of these we've verified virtually all of those, apart from a very small number there that you can see in green that have been closed, and these relate to an audit of ICT service continuity or phishing, and these have been closed, so we've been advised by the IT team that they have been addressed, but we will verify that when we follow up this particular audit formally in May. As has been reported previously with these reports, we do on occasions extend target dates for some actions, and this is where if a service demonstrates a legitimate reason for an extension, for example, it becomes obvious that the original target date is going to be unachievable, or that there's significantly more work needed to address the issue of risk. And again, has been previously reported, this is something that's become particularly pertinent with the COVID-19 emergency and the ongoing recovery phase, where service priorities have clearly been focused on responding and recovering from the pandemic. Just moving down to graph 5 there, this shows the outstanding actions by year, so when the original audit took place, and you can see there that the majority relate to the last couple of financial years, but there are a small number going back to 2017-18 that management have yet to fully address, and these relate to general improvements and efficiencies within the council's sundry debtors process. These form part of the work of the consultancy project that was discussed in the previous item that's currently underway within the income team. So, and again, this an update's already been provided on those, but that those particular actions should be addressed as part of that piece of work. It's also important to note that there are no major or amber rated risks dating back further than 1920, which demonstrates that on the whole management are prioritising addressing the risks of higher risk priority. Moving down just to Appendix 1 very quickly, this outlines in more detail the 17 major rated issues and risks and gives a more detailed status update on the individual risks. I won't go into any great detail on that, but you can see there, you know, what they specifically relate to. Just to draw the committee's attention, if I may, down to page 6, the third risk down, relating to the audit of corporate parenting panel. And this related to the publishing of the council's corporate parenting strategy. I just want to make note really that the current target date on there says the 30th of April. We've since this report was written had an update, and we have actually moved that target date. So this is an example where we would move a target date for a particular action, and this is to do with the fact that as part of this particular action, the council will be providing training on corporate parenting to members and their responsibilities in that area. But this is going to fall following the local government elections with the new council. So clearly the end of April target date would be unachievable. So we've moved that now, but it's just to highlight that really. But again, you'll see from the table there that there's a detailed update. Where there isn't an update, it is where we haven't quite reached the date by which that particular action was due to be completed. But once that date approaches, we will contact management to get an update. That's all I wanted to say on that, Chair. But I'm happy to take any questions that the committee has.
Thank you very much. Do members have questions, please? Any hands up? All content? Can I just ask Nanette, when we get to the situation where a when we were talking in the last, in Marion's report about the payment, supply, maintenance, and duplicate payments, there are two major items there. Now, the completion date for those has been updated, and it's now November in 2022. So when we look at your report, which says outstanding action, there are no major ones. It's partly because some of the completion dates have been moved forward. So I'm just wondering whether we're maybe a little bit complacent that because we're able to move completion dates forward, that we don't give priority to some of the actions which really are of major concern to us. In other words, they're actually overdue.
Yes, yeah, that is true. When we do move the completion dates, they do move from being due to not due, and again, they don't fall within those particular statistics. What I would say though is where it is, if it's a higher risk priority, we are, I suppose, more cognizant of when those dates are going to be put to, if that makes sense. So I would say that we do definitely prioritise the amber rated risks more, and would pursue an update more quickly on those. I would say. I don't know whether, Marion, you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, exactly. The two supplier maintenance and duplicate payments on the two major ones are included in that list there that Nanette has given you. By the virtue of the fact that they are risk-based and weighted of their priority, we have assessed them against the council's risk appetite. And so if it's only a yellow risk, then by virtue of it only being a yellow risk, it's going to be less of a priority. So if it does slip, it's not such a big deal. It's only if its slippage actually increases the risk. And if that is the case, we would then change the risk priority. The colour may change, it may be in amber. So it would be on that list, those 17. And so that's why we specifically use that weighting of our risks and issues so that it is aligned to the council's risk appetite. We don't use urgent or important or that some councils use. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, everybody. So the recommendation there is that the committee notes the council's progress in addressing the outstanding internal audit issues and risks. All content? John? I'll go through, get my list of members. Alan?
They've been accepted.
Margaret?
That have been accepted.
Myself. Is Peter with us yet?
No, unfortunately, we haven't been able to solve Councillor Rogers's connection problems, so he's tendered an apology.
Thank you. Good. Thank you very much indeed. So we come now to the indicative forward work programme for the coming 22-23 year, and I think Marion, you're on next.
Yes, this is me, Chair. So as the title suggests, it's an indicative forward work programme. At the moment, we still don't know the dates of audit committee, so we've had to put just broad months in there. We are only planning to have those 6, but it may be that we have a special meeting to consider the draft statement of accounts if necessary. I've benchmarked the forward work programme against our terms of reference to make sure that we cover everything in the terms of reference, and that's where you'll see those corresponding numbers in the forward work programme. There gives you an indication that everything is covered. As I say, at this stage things may move around, but I'm hoping that this will be the framework on which our forward work programme is based for the coming year.
Thank you very much. When will we know the true dates?
I don't, maybe Anne could help us with that.
The calendar is due to be published quite shortly now.
Okay, thank you. Do members have any issues to raise with the indicative forward work programme? It's something that we'll be returning to fairly frequently anyway.
Yeah.
Marion, you don't see anything in this work programme which now includes possibly some additional work resulting from the 2021 Act, which makes the number of meetings we're going to have, is it still viable?
Yes, so the last two lines in the matrix has got the self-assessment and the performance panel assessment. So the self-assessment will come to you once during the year, so that's just one extra item. The performance panel assessment only has to come to you once in the 5 years. So that's why there's no date for that as yet, because it may come in year 1 to 5. Complaints, which is a new issue in the Act, was already included in our work programme. We were already ahead of the curve there. So that's already scheduled in. So I can't see at this stage. I mean, I think even though we had 9 committee meetings last year, although 3 of those were to individually consider the statement of accounts and the AGS, and I think that worked better. This schedule gives us 5 + 1 to look at the schedule, the statement of accounts and the AGS. So it may be that we may feel at some point we may need to slot another 1 in, but I think we'll just see how it goes.
Thank you very much. No points raised other than that. So the recommendation is that the committee considers whether the indicative forward work programme for 22-23 meets the committee's new responsibilities in accordance with the amended terms of reference. So we're all happy with that. I'm not going to go around. Thank you very much. That is item 8 completed. There's one item that we deferred, and I'll just ask about procedure now, because it's the item for the appointment of lay members to the Governance Audit Committee. I'm very much involved in this. I can't really take the item.
Can I propose? Can I propose, Chairman, in light that we've lost the Chairman as well, that Councillor John Griffiths sets in the chair for this item, if that's acceptable?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Councillor who?
John Griffith.
John?
Much as I'd like to, Alan's a perfect replacement. I suggest Alan. Can I do mine, Alan?
Right. Okay. Are you staying with us still, Wyn? Or are you leaving us now before we carry on?
Okay. I need to go in the waiting room, don't I?
Right.
Who does
can
that?
somebody arrange that, please? Right. Diolch yn fawr.
Okay, thank you. I'm not sure who's going to be introducing this item. So I'm in your hands, Mark, or whoever's responsible for presenting the item. Yes, it's me, it's Marion Pryor.
So the Local Government and Elections Wales Act introduces reforms, as you're well aware, one of which is that we have to have 1/3 of our audit committee members as lay members. Dilwyn, who is one of our lay members, has agreed to stay on for a further term. That just needs approval from yourselves to agree to recommend that for approval to council, that he is allowed to stay on for a second 5-year term. And then we needed 3 new lay members. I've provided an update to the committee before on the process that we undertook. We had 13 applications, and some of the applications weren't complete or were considered inappropriate for different reasons, which left us with 4 candidates for us to interview. We interviewed in February a panel of the chair of the audit committee, the now chief exec and director of finance, interviewed in February, and from those interviews 3 members were put forward, 3 names. They were Michael Wilson of Llangefni, Anglesey, Sharon Warnes of Pwllheli, Gwynedd, and Mr. William Parry of Rhosneigr, Anglesey. And we're asking for the Governance and Audit Committee to approve the selection that was undertaken by the panel and appointment of the 3 candidates as lay members to the Governance and Audit Committee, and that this is recommended to council for final approval, and the recommendation to council in relation to the continuance of the current lay member for a second 5-year term. I'm happy to answer any questions, or if Mark is one of the, I think, only members of the panel that's here, if you wanted to ask Mark any questions on the interview panel, then we can answer the questions for you.
Unrhyw gwestiwn?
No.
Dim problem.
I Mark, dwi'n meddwl, mynd dim. Gweld bod 'na 3 ar
I have a
10.
question for Mark. Seeing that 13 applied, it seems to me that you've lost out, or you've, you know, why did you cut it down to so few people? It was obvious with some of them that they started filling in the form but hadn't completed them, so we couldn't just accept them as forms that we needed to consider. There were some who had obviously applied for each council. You know, we did work with the WLGA on this, so the ad was for the 22 authorities. So you had some who applied to every council, and some of them didn't live in the Gwynedd, Anglesey area. There was one from Swansea, one from London, one from Kent, if I remember correctly. And, you know, the panel decided or considered whether we were willing to accept the applications from people that didn't have any link to Anglesey at all, or didn't understand the council and the area and the problems it faces, the pressure on services. And because we had 4 strong applicants, we decided just to interview those 4 because we were confident that we would be able to appoint 3 of the 4. The chair did agree not to interview these people, you know, from further afield. You know, what did they have to offer that was better than those applicants who had linked to the area? To be honest, in terms of the rest of them, it wasn't a loss that we didn't interview them. Thank you for that explanation, and I agree with you. Thank you. I take it that John also wants to ask a question. It's just something that has come to my mind now. Which is the validity of voting on this item. There are only 3 members here, so is there a quorum? Yes, I was going to ask that question myself. So where do we stand in terms of having a quorum? The quorum is 3 members. So you're just within the requirements for a quorum.
3 in there.
Yeah, chwarter o'r 9.
It's a quarter of the 9 members of the committee that you need to form a quorum.
Aelod Lleig. Dwi'n meddwl bod hynna'n newid o dan drefn newydd, ond pan da ni efo 4.
You know, at the moment, we don't need a lay member as part of the quorum. I think that will change under the new rules and the new committee. Do we need to go through everybody individually for the vote? Or shall we just propose the 3 listed in the report? Do we need to go through them individually? Or 4?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So you need to agree to re-elect the current lay member and then to vote on the 3 new members. So the recommendation in the report asked you to accept the 4 members. So is anybody willing to propose that we accept the recommendation? So unless there's anything else, I'm sure that Councillor Peter Rogers, if he were here, would like to thank John, who isn't standing for election in May. Thank you for your service to this committee over the last 5 years. Chair, if the Vice Chair is still in the waiting room, I think you could invite him back now. I think that he wants to thank everybody officially.
Thank you very much.
We've gone through the items, so we understand you want to say a couple of words now at the end of this meeting.
Well, yes, thank you, Anne. I would like to just make 1 or 2 comments because, as I said at the beginning, this is the sort of final meeting of the 5-year cycle. I would, on behalf of Peter, our chairman, for the duration of the cycle, to thank everyone for the way in which they've participated. And I'm talking not just about the council members of the committee, but also all the officials from Anglesey County Council, and also to members of the external agencies, particularly the Wales Audit, for the contributions they've made. I think on the whole, the discussions we've been able to have during the meetings in this last 5 years have been hopefully constructive in helping to improve the overall performance of the County Council. On a personal note, I would also like to thank the members for accepting me as an independent member, and also for your remarkable tolerance in sleeping through the many comments that I've found myself making. I hope I haven't bored you too much. But on that note, may I say thank you again, and hopefully see at least some of you in May. Thank you very much. Okay.
Well.